welcome back to the Dark Angels tutorial. For the next step, I'm gonna use red to base coat the lenses on the helmet. Try to use the finest brush that you have. After that, I'm gonna use Mephiston red, and I'm gonna paint the front half of the lens. Next step, I'm gonna use Squeak orange and just paint the very edge of the front of the lens to make a 3-color transition between the reds on the lenses. And to finish the lenses off, we're gonna use white scar and with the finest brush paint dots on the very back of the lens to suggest a reflection. Now, the next step is to use Codex Gray, and I'm gonna base coat the arrow and all of the details like the skulls and the wings from the aquila. Next step, I'm gonna use Leadbelcher, diluted a little bit with glaze medium, and I'm gonna start base coating all of the metal areas such as the bolter and the skull that is in the back of the backpack. Also, I forgot to paint the tubes on the respirator, but that's totally fine. I did it at the end. Next, I'm gonna use Mephiston red, and I'm gonna base coat the box of the bolter. Also, I painted the purity seal. Next, with dawnstone or Rackard flesh, I'm gonna base coat the purity seal. Next step, with Abaddon black, I'm gonna base coat the joints between the legs and the arms if you see any. For this particular model, it wasn't this step wasn't really necessary. Next, I'm going with washes. First, I'm going to use Griphonne Sepia or Seraphim Sepia to wash the purity seal, and I'm going to use Asurmen blue for the gray, Codex gray areas, except the arrow because it doesn't really need it. Next I'm going to use Nuln oil and wash over the purity seal and all of the bolter, silver and red parts, and also in the back of the backpack. Next step, I'm going to use Ushabti bone for the first highlight, and I'm going to highlight the purity seal, leaving the recesses on the previous color. Another highlight for this area is going to be Screaming Skull. You're going to use it at the edges of the purity seal and at the very raised areas. Next, I'm going to use Codex Gray over the previous Codex Gray areas that I've already base coated. try not to destroy the shadows from the aquila symbol. Next, I'm gonna use a Fortress Gray, and I'm gonna highlight the areas that I've already painted. Painting the aquila with this color is a sort of a dry brush with very little paint on the brush, and this is gonna be a sort of a edge highlight, trying to go a little broader on the edges. Now the last highlight is going to be White Scar. It's going to go in the very edges of these areas as well. Also in the very edges of the aquila symbol. And on the arrow, the very edge. Next up, I'm going to use Evil Sunz Scarlet, and I'm going to highlight the purity seal and the edges of the bolter case. Next up, I'm going to use Ironbreaker, and I'm going to start highlighting over the metal areas. This is sort of a edge highlight and the toppest areas as well. Next, I'm using Khorne Red again. And I'm going to repeat the process on the eyes of the lenses for the lens of the bolter, which is Khorne Red, followed by Mephiston Red, the half of the lens, and Squeak Orange at the end. On the very bottom of the lens. To finish it off, White Scar, a little dot at the top. Maybe you can appreciate this effect better on the lens here. That's what we're trying to do when we are doing the lenses on the eyes. Next, I'm going to draw the bolter hole with black, and the purity seal I'm going to write something with my finest brush. Now, I found that I didn't paint over the pouches areas of the miniature. So I'm doing that right now. I'm using Mournfang brown with a Nuln oil wash, and then an edge highlight with Mournfang brown. Now, this is the finished product, and I have to say I'm really proud of it. I think it looks very well, and I had a lot of fun painting this guy. I definitely recommend you to paint it this way. It looks very good, and please let me know in a comment what do you think of it, and what would you like me to improve on my tutorials, and if you have any suggestions or painting requests, feel free to post them below. I will be happy to answer and to know what you think about it. Here are the still pictures for the miniature. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.